Hey, good evening, everyone, and so glad you could be here tonight for this edition episode. What is this, really? What are we doing here, right? Whatever this is, episode, edition, whatever it is, late night coffee talk. This is that time in the week where I take a break from working on Texas independence to come in here, pour yet another cup of the Go Juice, fire up the camera, and answer your questions. And I'm so glad you're here tonight. For those of you joining us for the first time, I'm Daniel Miller, president of the Texas Nationalist movement, and welcome to the family. Right, you're here. You got questions. I'm going to try to answer as many as I possibly can tonight because many of you have keyed in on this. Get your questions in early via email. So beyond what we've got in the chat, we've got lots to cover tonight. Plus, right here, right now, we're under some imminent storm, right? There's some nasty storm blowing in. So I'm going to try to squeeze all this in before the end of our allotted time together, or before the power goes out, whichever comes first, right? So if you're new, then you probably don't know how to get your questions in, and that's what I'm about to tell you. If you're watching on YouTube, go drop your question in the chat on YouTube. While you're there, do be sure to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you are notified when we do go live, which is generally speaking every Thursday night at 8 p.m. Plus, we do other live stuff too. So just, you want to hit the notification bell. Otherwise, you don't get notified, right? But yeah, as I said, drop your questions in chat. Additionally, if you're watching on the Facebook page, you can drop your question in the comments under this video. Of course, remember, guys, all this only works if it's live, right? So if you're here and it's live, then that's the only way that works, okay? But drop your questions in there. Be sure to like and share while you're there as well. Help us spread the word. Additionally, if you're watching on X, which I mentioned, I think, last week, that our X viewership is now, our YouTube viewership's going up and X is going down. So I don't know what trend that signifies. Not my circus, not my monkeys. Bottom line is, if you're on X and you're watching there, you can drop your question in the chat over there on X. And all of those things aggregate. Actually, for me, it's a window over here, right? And then Kara goes through and she looks for things with question marks and she stars them and does all that. And then I just get them all out of this big hopper. Final thing, if you don't want to do it there, be sure to drop your email or your question via email to coffeetalk@vtnm.org. That's coffeetalk@vtnm.org. And you'll see it scrolling on the bottom of the page here somewhere at some point. It'll be there. You'll see it. It'll be reminding you the whole time where you can follow us, where you can donate, do all that cool stuff, right? All right. So before we get rocking and rolling, Mr. Eric Riddle went ahead and seeded money in the good old tip jar. Thank you so much for your super chat there on YouTube, Eric. And additionally, if anyone else, that's one of the cool things that we do here is you guys are super generous. And you definitely want to see us continue to get the word out. And so I'm very much in favor, excuse me. As you can tell, I'm a little under the weather too, but I'm very much in favor of, seeding generosity. So, we started, you guys know, we went over to this new donation platform, and I think I may have donated to each of the sort of state level campaigns. I did, as a matter of fact, on the Alamo Wreath, I set up a recurring contribution in honor of my late father-in-law, Skip Austin. So, guys, you got an opportunity here to follow Eric's example. He did a super chat right there on YouTube, right? And you can do that as well. So drop us a super chat. Additionally, channel memberships are available over there. And you're going to want that because you're going to get early access to some of it. I know some of you guys have been super patient about you've been super patient about the lack of new episodes of the Texas News Podcast. I promise you they're coming. We have got one in the can. Actually, we got 3 in the can that just have to be produced. But more than that, we got some new interviews coming up, and you'll probably get to see those first because those are easier for us to cut and put together. But I'm going to be interviewing Larkin Jackson, the head of the Free Louisiana movement. They are our counterparts over in Louisiana. I mean, they're just right across the river here, right? So going to be interviewing him coming up. And additionally, we're going to start our candidate interviews, right? So any of these candidates that are out there that are running, particularly Texas First Pledge signers, you know, that's part of being the host of the podcast. I get to choose, I get to pick who I want to interview, right? But we're going to be starting that. So right out of the gate, we're going to be interviewing Rhonda Ward, who is a Republican candidate for Senate District 3 and a Texas First Pledge signer. So those interviews are on the books, and will be, I think Larkin, I think we're doing his tomorrow. So anyway, you'll have plenty of fresh content up there. And anyway, Eric, thank you so much for your super chat. It is much, much appreciated. Ooh, man, I'm already seeing great questions. Like, just so you guys understand, I have been slammed today, so I haven't got to see any of the email questions, and of course the chat questions are always fresh. So let's tear into it. All right, so let's take one from email, because you know it's a perk of getting it early, right? So this is from Franklin. Okay, Franklin says, hey Daniel, been enjoying the show, got a question. How does the passing of the stablecoin bill impact the Texas gold bill? Is this a ploy to destroy or regain control of Texas and its monetary policies? And may I make a suggestion for possible usage of gold back in daily commerce and not just a digital system? There's a lot to unpack in that question, but thank you for sending it in, Franklin. All right, so you know, I love it when I get questions like this, because it gives me an opportunity to, you know, recycle this. This is never going to get old for me. Yes, golds, right? So we're back to talking about gold, which is not a bad situation. You know, and I know what spurred this question, or I think I do, which is, you know, obviously we have talked about the transactional gold bill. We've talked about that, I think, pretty much just about every coffee talk since the session wrapped up and Abbott finally signed the transactional gold bill. And for those of you who don't know, head over to TexianPartisan.com and you can read the stories on that. There's a Texas News podcast where I interview Chris Burtz. I'm not going to cover that a bunch tonight. I'm not really going to cover it at all. But in the context of Franklin's question, he's asking about the passing of the stablecoin bill. And so, you know, without diving off into deep detail about this, I will just answer it this way, and you guys can kind of do your own research on this out and about. But I think this stablecoin bill is a nefarious backdoor, and so something at the federal level, right? This stablecoin bill, I think, is a masquerading as a crypto-friendly piece of legislation, is essentially a backdoor to a central bank digital currency. Okay. Now, if you guys don't know what that is, I mean, that's an hour-long conversation, and we can't talk just about that. But I'm not a fan of it, and I will tell you that you look at that Trojan horse, because essentially it is. And look, that's not just me saying that. You know, one of the people who has been one of the staunchest defenders of Donald Trump, who, you know, Marjorie Taylor Greene, came out and said, look, this is a Trojan horse. She's saying exactly the same thing. So this is not some anti-Trump rant. This is a fairly wildly held view that stablecoin bill is nothing more than a Trojan horse for a central bank digital currency. And the short story on CBDCs is this: do you want every purchase that you make tracked? Do you want every time you move money tracked to you? Well, if you do, then that's your bill, right? That's what a central bank digital currency ultimately will do. And there are a lot of people who believe that that is a step on the road to the social credit score, and the fact that the government has keys for that sort of thing, or is at least inching that direction, can determine whether you can buy or sell. That sounds very much like Revelations to me, or China and its social credit system, right? So there is a tinge of totalitarianism in the direction that that bill is taking us. And so I'm not the only person to do that. Now, does that impact the Texas Gold Bill? Not really, right? I think that perhaps this is one of the reasons that the push has been so hard for a transactional gold system, and ultimately here in Texas, and ultimately a real deal, like full-blown currency, and obviously real deal, full-blown independence. We cannot. There was an article posted on the Texan Partisan today that essentially listed out, I think, 5 or 6 different things that were promised by Donald Trump on the campaign trail, and how they just have not come to fruition. And in fact, there is a full-on MAGA revolt going on because of some of the things that are transpiring, whether it's the Epstein files, or now weapons to Ukraine, or now this, backdoor central bank digital currency, or on and on, the things are going. So there is, I believe, and this is going to kind of wrap this up, Franklin, that this is, I think, for a lot of people, a wake-up call, a reminder that it doesn't matter who you get elected as president, the federal system is always going to assemble power unto itself. And the only way that you are ever going to, be rid of that sort of thing is to be out of that system. That's it. Because at the end of the day, you cannot fix the federal system because it is working as intended. It's accumulating power unto itself. And what the purpose of that is ultimately, and each person's motivations, I leave that to them. That's not my issue. I don't care what their motivation is. What I'm concerned about is the fact that Texas cannot be sucked into that vortex, that power black hole in Washington D.C. We have to be independent. The only way out is out. Quote Kleber Kamau. So there you go. And so, you mentioned the gold-backed currency. If you guys haven't looked into that, you may want to do that. Nate and I spoke with the founder of the gold-back. I think we met him we were invited to take part in a panel discussion at Pork Fest. That's PORC, not PORK, although that would be cool if it involved bacon, right? But Pork Fest up in New Hampshire, I don't know, several years ago, and we met, and there had been some conversations, but one of the biggest challenges that they expressed to us was the absolute size of Texas in rolling out the gold back here. So if you guys don't know what that is, it's literally like paper currency, but it's not. It's literally sealed gold, and it's spendable. You can put it in your wallet. It's pretty crazy. Go check that out. Not a paid sponsorship, by the way. I'm just telling you that because he mentioned it, and I like what they're doing. I just wish they would have chosen Texas as a rollout. Maybe we can have that conversation with them again. Let us know in the comments if that's something you'd be interested in the 10M doing, is working with the Goldback guys to get them to deploy the Goldbacks right here in Texas. All right, let's get over here to the chat and see what we got. Man, we got lots of questions. All right, let's see if I'm going to be able to ping back and forth on these. Okay, this is from Robert via email. Robert says, will the nation of Texas be able to reverse all land sales made to China? Interesting thing is that the land sales that are in controversy right now are not being made directly to China, right? They're being made to individuals that have ties to the Chinese Communist government, or as happens, these controversial sales, they're individuals that are effectively fronts for the People's Liberation Army in China, the ironically named People's Liberation Army. So, whether it's PLA fronts or people connected to the Chinese Communist Party, the outcry against foreign ownership of strategic resources, prime agricultural land, or land near significant secure infrastructure locations, around central grid points for the electrical grid or power generation or military bases. It's a big concern. And so that's really what's fired this all up. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, the nation of Texas, the self-governing independent nation of Texas, gets to set its own policy about those sorts of things without any type of interference from the federal government. All right. So thanks for that question, Robert. Let's get in here to one of the chat questions. Okay, this is from Gabriel. He says Texas would have to repudiate the national debt if it became an independent country again, right? Okay, so let me, and this question comes in from X, and here's the thing. First off, let's get the terminology right. It is not national debt. They refer to it as national debt. People sing along in the chorus calling it the national debt, but there's nothing national about that debt because the United States is not a nation. That is debt accumulated by the federal government, which in and of itself as an entity. The United States of America is an entity, okay? And that debt is accumulated by that entity. And so the bottom line is it's not national debt because that would presuppose that we're a nation. That would mean that we are each individually on the hook for it, right? It's federal debt. It is debt accumulated by that federal entity. So the issue of repudiation of the federal debt is we get to basically call our own tune on that, and it's something that we've talked about. I talked about it in the Texas book. Dr. Matt Kortrup, we've got a clip on our YouTube channel where he's talking about the federal debt and what happens to it. Terry Halsey posted or submitted an academic paper to the Texian Partisan. I think it's even on the TNM's library side as well about the federal debt situation. And here's what it boils down to. Texas is under no obligation. Texas as an entity that is part of this membership club is under no obligation to repay a single cent of debt accumulated by the federal entity. There is no obligation to do so, nor can the United States impose a so-called exit tax on any state that decides to leave, okay? Now, that is the reality. There is no obligation, but the question really is, does that become part of the negotiation? And the answer is it will probably come up. There will be this chorus of people over there, the people that hate Texas, that want us to be saddled with some of that federal debt. Their argument will be Texas got the benefit of that money that was borrowed. Okay, fair play. But if that is indeed the case and that money was utilized for assets, then whatever percentage we take, we want that percentage of the assets, right? So if they say, okay, cool, you got to take 10% of the federal debt, be like, great, we would like 10% of your military equipment. We would like 10% of your vehicles and your buildings, and give it. And if you don't have it here and you got to go liquidate it elsewhere, not our problem, right? So the thing is if you are saddled with the debt, if you agree to take a portion of it, then you get to ask for things in exchange for that debt, things that debt was used to pay for. Question then becomes, how would that be calculated? It could be as a percentage of GDP. It could be a per capita. I lay all those out, and actually there is an entire article about that at texitnow.org, which is answers to the most commonly asked questions about Texas independence. So anyway, we don't have to repudiate it. It's sort of the default position, and then where it goes from there is really up to how it gets negotiated out and what everybody's pain points are. Okay, thank you for that question. Okay, let's go back over here to email. I can't tell if this is a question or not. Okay. Yeah. Okay. There it is. I got to it, guys. When you send me research papers, understand that all I can do is get to the question. Okay. So, and what took me some time here is there was actually two emails. So, not saying that Bob here sent me a research paper, but just a little advice moving forward for everyone. So, this is what Bob says. He says about the court ordered redistricting, which um, this is not really a court ordered redistricting, but I get where you're coming from. He says this is the Fed telling Texas that we must redraw our election districts. While this will not be a factor when Texas is independent again, it shows the results of electing idiots to represent us. How best do we educate ourselves about representative candidates when the media lies to us so often? Look, Bob, you don't need the media to lie to you about candidates. They lie about themselves all the time. I mean, it's just, I mean, they bypass the media, right? Or they buy time on media, and so the idea that somehow it's just that we only get scumbags because the media lies to us is really a fallacy. It's because the scumbags get a lot of money. They pay a lot of money to send direct mail, get up on radio and TV and all that kind of stuff, and they lie themselves about themselves to everybody else. Again, we're going to get the same song and dance, most conservative session ever, right here in Texas, right? So that's especially true on the congressional side. I mean, it so is, right? Particularly at the federal level. So, to your question though about how do we best educate ourselves, this is the thing about responsibility, right? It's kind of we're in a situation in a post constitutional United States where it's not enough just to educate yourself, right? I can sit here and educate myself and be able to determine which one of these is a knucklehead and which one of these is a good candidate, right? And that's that. Normally, that would suffice, especially if everyone else who decided to go to the polls and cast a ballot did exactly the same thing. But that's not the case. So, in a post-constitutional United States, living in a Texas that's trying to become independent, we have to not only educate ourselves, but we have to then go actively educate the people that are not motivated to educate themselves, right? And it's hard work, right? It's hard work climbing back and clawing your way back from the abyss, but that's just what it is. And so, like I say, it's not enough just to educate ourselves. If we want to not preserve, because there is no status quo, but if we want to ultimately get and win our independence, then it is incumbent upon us to go that extra mile, educate ourselves, and then turn around and educate others, right? I can educate myself, keep my light under a bushel, and okay, great. If you're inside the bushel, that's great. But for everybody else, who is going to be their light? Because if not for people like us, then the flood of mailers and the TV ads and the radio ads and everything else are just going to do their work because most people don't take the time to do their research. Hence why we have a shirt on the Texian store that says low info voters kill republics. It's true. So, how best do we educate ourselves? You just got to do your homework. I would suggest talking to these candidates. Talking to people that know them, looking, especially for incumbents, looking at their voting records. My dad would never vote for an incumbent. That's how contrary he was, right? Not saying that. You don't have to be that way, but ultimately, the best way to do it is just go fact check everything. I've already got a mailer in here from Trent Ashby because I live in SD3. I got a mailer from Trent Ashby, the first one. I pulled it out of the mailbox and channeled my inner Yoda and said, begun the Clone Wars have, right? Here it goes. I mean, I have a stack this thick from Phelan and Covey of direct mailers that came to our mailbox, right? And so, I'm looking at it and I'm like, okay, this is a meaningless platitude. This has no meaning. This has no meaning. But that mailer is going to sway somebody. They're going to look at that and go, oh, okay, well, he's a champion. Yeah, he lowered property taxes, even though their property tax bill probably will go up, right? I mean, they'll be swayed by that. And so, he can go drop, 10 grand on a mailer to every household in SD3 or 20 grand or whatever it is. He can go do that. People like us, we don't have that kind of money. So what do we get to do? We get to talk to our circle. Each of us directly knows or has a relationship with, on average, about 150 people. And if each of us engaged those 150 people on the issues that mattered, and then followed up, and then made sure that those people got to the polls, be game, set, and match, man. It'd be over with. They could never beat us. But it's because, most of us don't do that this stuff gets unrebutted and it gets held up as fact. Whatever trash lands in our mailboxes or inboxes or comes through the TV ads or the radio or social media, whatever it is, just goes unrebutted. And therefore, in the minds of many people, it's just an absolute fact, as though God chiseled it on stone tablets and sent it down with Moses from the mountain. So, anyway, thank you for that question, Bob. Let's get back over here to chat and see what we see. Our good friend, John, this is what he says. Any word of where candidate for Governor Doc Pete Chambers stands on Texas? Reached out to him on social media and his campaign site, but crickets so far. I don't know the answer to that, John. I have not had a direct conversation with him. We're in a very weird election right now. This is I say very different. I mean, it may not be that different than the last one last year, or the one even 2 years before that. We're still, from the perspective of candidates being super public, we're still a bit early. Although, many have announced and there's all kinds of things happening. But what I know is who has signed the Texas First Pledge and who hasn't. And I know as of right now, Doc has not signed the Texas First Pledge, although we did get the candidate that's running against Jared Patterson signed the Texas First Pledge. And that was due to prodding by David Brunig on X. Who went over there and said, look, I'm looking for people to support against people that are totally anti-Texas and anti-Texit. And my shopping list is going to consist of Texas First Pledge signers. And he went and signed the pledge. So, and I can't call his name right now, but he went and signed it. And, kudos to him for doing that. And you're going to start seeing more and more of that as we go through the cycle. Right, you're going to see people that have already signed, that previously ran, announce that they're running. You're going to have new pledge signers. I mean, this is about to be super prime time. You're right. So, my only recommendation, John, is for you and others to go asking. You prompt people on social media enough. A lot of times when they're campaigning, you will get an answer. Right. So. I don't know where he stands, but I've heard a lot I'd say a lot. I've heard some from him, and so far I've liked what I've heard, but I have not heard those magic words yet, which are on the Texas First Pledge, and that's what I'm going to be looking for. So, anyway, thank you for that question. All right, we're at the midway point. This is good. So we're at the midway point. So a reminder to those of you joining us late, if you'd like to get your question in and you're watching on YouTube, drop it in the chat while you're there. Be sure to give us a super chat. Sure would appreciate that. If you're watching on Facebook, you can drop your question in the comments under. Be sure to like and share. Additionally, if you're watching on X, drop your question in the chat there on the video. It all aggregates over here and we get to it. And if you don't want to do any of those, head over and drop it via email to coffeetalk@vtnm.org. You will see it down here at the bottom of the screen very shortly. Okay. All right, this is from Herb. Herb says that he is in Wichita Falls, 64 years old, and living on Social Security disability. Uh, Herb, I'm not going to go into your particulars because that is private information, and I'm not going to share that with everybody. He says, I can only make about half my bills. I feel like we as people who have worked all our lives are being robbed. I want to know what Texas is going to do about this and when they're going to start taking better care of the people who work for what we are not getting. The reason for this is I see and hear about young people who are on drugs. They have maybe worked less than 3 years, getting a bigger payment than most of us on Social Security. How is that happening? Why is this allowed to happen? Thank you for your time. I will be having coffee with you tonight at 8:30. Hey, how's that for timing? Right? It's 8:30. So Herb, you're probably on right now. That's good. Well, we're having our coffee together. Look, first off, let me just say I appreciate that this is a Social Security question that is not the normal Social Security question of what will happen to Social Security, right? Because that has been answered on previous coffee talks. There's an entire video on our YouTube channel about it. There are articles upon articles upon articles written about that, both at texitnow.org and Texian Partisan. So, if you have that question tonight, be sure to go look over there. But Herb's question is, I think, to me, more of kind of an outcry of help. And I think it really encapsulates a lot of where people are and how disconnected people feel from the federal system. This is not what you're talking about. It's not a Texas problem. That is a direct result of our relationship with the federal government. And the federal government essentially utilizing our tax dollars to subsidize lifestyles that we don't agree with. I mean, look, the system is broken. The federal system is absolutely 100% broken. And I will tell you that a big moment of clarity for me line in the sand day was when I was handed, given a challenge by two brothers. One, they handed me a copy of the U.S. Constitution in one hand and a copy of the Communist Manifesto in the other and said, go home and read these two and you tell us which one the federal government looks more like. And when I see that there are people here in Texas, and my folks were two of them, right? We always had enough to get by, but never enough to get ahead. Many of you guys don't know my personal story, but I was the son of a teenage mother, and I was raised by my grandparents from the time I came home from the hospital, right? From a decidedly different generation. Mom was born in 1928, dad was born in 1932, okay? So they were always blue collar, right? Made just enough to get by, but never enough to get ahead. And there's stories galore about that and about how all of that sort of upbringing influenced getting me to see Texas as becoming an independent nation. But I think a lot about, how my folks, they worked hard their entire lives. Dad was an iron worker up until 1980, right? He went to the military, served in Korea, came home, and immediately went to work as an iron worker and worked every single solitary day where there was work until he retired in 1980. And then he picked up jobs here and there because he had the opportunity to do that, right? He'd sell produce or worked as a security guard for a while, just do those things to try to supplement income. And mom worked as essentially a secretary, an office administrator for my aunt and uncle for many, many years. And neither one of them made a ton of money. They just never did that. Like I said, they made enough to get by, but not enough to get ahead. And, it was interesting always to watch how they did everything they were supposed to do, right? They worked hard. They, they didn't get into legal trouble, right? They weren't out there holding up convenience stores and, snorting and shooting everything. They get their hand. They were just real ideal Texans from that generation, right? And they were just great folks. Like to have love to have fun, right? But not crazy, just great people. And to see how hard they work, and then to understand that the federal government would still take money from them to give it to people that didn't have that sort of work ethic, right? And you fast forward, so you see that, and I mean that registered with me as a youngster, right? And then you get to that point where they hand, these two guys, they hand me this Constitution and Communist Manifesto, and I'm looking at these things, and I'm like, wait a minute. We were told throughout the entire Cold War, at least part of that I lived through, that we were fighting against communism and socialism. Remember even Churchill. Churchill said, what did he say? Socialism is the philosophy of failure, the creed of ignorance, gospel of envy. That was it. I knew I would get that quote. Its inherent virtue, the equal sharing of misery. Right? That's what I think that's the whole quote. But it's like, we were told that we were fighting this atheistic, godless socialism, wrapped in this totalitarianism that was called the Soviet Union, the pinnacle of communist thought. And, that taking money from hardworking people and distributing it only eventually led to misery and collapse and death and murder and all these horrible things. And you turn right around and you look, and what they had everybody's eyes focused so hard on the Soviet Union and its totalitarianism that everyone here seemed to miss the fact that it was right here in our own backyard, right? It could be masked to a certain extent by some of the post-World War II prosperity, right? That's a whole other discussion. But, I think that everybody's eyes were so focused out toward the Soviets and under the fear of nuclear annihilation that what they failed to see was that sort of philosophy had taken root and was growing like kudzu across the North American continent, and how they would entangle the states and the individuals and all this. I mean, this is a topic for a whole time, but Herb, I'm just saying all this because I don't want to eat up all the time with this, that I understand what your frustration is. You ask, how is this happening? It's happening because of the federal system. Why is this allowed to happen? Because of our continued membership in a federal system that still worships at the feet of the totalitarian Soviet regime. I mean, that's what they are. We could call them neo-Marxists, we call them Maoists or whatever, but ultimately that's what these people do. They are still stealing from you and from your children and from your grandchildren to effectively destroy the institutions that everyone thinks of as America when they think of the term America. You were subsidizing your own tyranny. And so, Herb, I got to tell you, I sympathize with you. I understand your frustration. Why is this allowed to happen? It's allowed to happen because the people that are mentioned in Article 1, Section 2 of the Texas Constitution, those people that have the inherent right to alter, reform, or abolish their government in such manner as they may think expedient, those people in whom all political power is inherent have decided to allow it to happen by continuing in this relationship, with the federal system. It's just the reality of it. The people are forging their own chains. And the question becomes, do you make them stronger? Is it sufficient to make them weaker? Or do you break the chains? What's your choice? So I'm with you, Herb, and I'm sorry you're experiencing that. I'm sorry you're experiencing it, but maybe tonight, maybe your words, because that's not me. Maybe your words will be in the ears of some people that need to hear it tonight, so that they understand that we're going to have to toil, we're going to have to work if we're going to claw ourselves back from the abyss. There is no status quo. It is a lie. A political status quo is an absolute lie. You don't hold ground. You're either gaining ground or you're losing ground. There is no status quo. And if we do not reverse the decline, if we do not do what we have to do, they will continue to drag us down into the depths of hell like the Titanic sinking to the bottom of the North Atlantic. That is the destiny if the people do not choose otherwise. I choose hope. I choose to work. I choose to sacrifice, myself. Everything that I could have been, everything that I am, everything that I do, everything that I make is in service to this cause, because ultimately it is for the children and the grandchildren and people like Herb and people like you and people like my neighbors. So this is the reality, friends. You heard it from Herb tonight. It's not my words, those are his words. Thank you for sending that in, sir. I really do appreciate that. Okay. All right. I got to get over here to some chat, man. You chatters are piling it up, and I have not been showing you the adequate amount of love that I need to. So let me knock that out. Here we go. All right. Going to... All right. So, hey, thank you to Chris for his super chat of $99.99. Thank you so much. That's right on YouTube, right? Everyone else out there, you can do that as well. Drop a super chat if you want it to help us continue to get this message out to the rest of Texas. This is what Chris says. He says, Daniel, past candidates on the Texas Pledge like myself, can we go on and re-up or renew? Please explain. Also, recruiting people currently for future delegates to vote out chairs on the precinct level convention who do not support us. We always have 30 extra seats open. Okay, so let me unpack this, and we'll tear into this. So if you are previously a candidate that has signed the Texas First Pledge, if you did not, so candidates that won, their status was changed to office holder. Candidates that did not win were changed to former candidate. Okay. If you run again, you don't have to fill out the form for the Texas First Pledge. You don't have to do that. All you have to do is drop a note to us on the contact form at taketexasback.com and say, hey, I signed the pledge and I'm running again. If you're running for exactly the same thing, right, the same office, or if there's a change, and then what we do is we just flip the status back to candidate and then make any changes necessary to your candidate profile. So that's the mechanics of how that works. And again, that's at taketexasback.com. And yeah, if you intend to run again, there are some people who said don't change mine to former candidate because they said just because I lost the last election, I never stopped running, right? So we left them. So there's plenty like that. Also, recruiting people currently for future delegates. Yeah, so just to address the last part, which is always have 30 extra seats open. This is something, and I cannot remember the statistic. I think we talked about this maybe a couple of coffee talks back. Someone asked a question about the political parties and kind of how they are constructed. And one of the things that's quite interesting is the state parties have an executive committee, right? So that's Republicans, Democrats, Libertarians, all have a state executive committee. So you'll hear us often refer to as, you'll often hear us refer to the SREC. That's the State Republican Executive Committee, okay? So from that, each county has a county chair, and that county has precincts. It's divided into precincts based off of how many votes are cast, et cetera, population, blah, blah, blah. And then each of those precincts has a precinct chair. And that's the way it works pretty much for I think they're all that way, right? But especially the parties that have to nominate via primary. So that would be Democrats and Republicans. But I think even the Libertarians are organized that way. And so with those precinct chair spots, those precinct chairs make up the county executive committee. So you will hear a term thrown around in both Republican and Democrat circles of talking about a CEC. That's the county executive committee. And so the really interesting stat, and I wish I could find this again, but somebody told me, or I read it somewhere, that I think 40% or more of the precinct chair positions in the Republican Party. I know this for the Republican Party, and I think it's higher for the Democratic Party. Are those precinct chair slots are unfilled, right? Nobody runs for them. Nobody files to run for them. They're never filled. And so consequently, what happens is there is a really two things. Number one is you wind up with some folks, particularly in some of these areas where you have just a handful kind of running the political party there, where it might be the dominant political party. But you also have what is effectively a tremendous opportunity. If your precinct does not have a precinct chair for the party of your choice, then go be the precinct chair. Go jam your hand in the air and do it. Or when the next window opens up for filing to run for precinct chair, because that goes on the ballot. It's on the primary ballot. Go sign up. Right? I mean, wouldn't it be lovely if indeed it was 40% empty, if those 40% were filled with Texas Nationalists? I mean, wouldn't that be lovely? I mean, now all of a sudden, regardless of party, what if those were filled, all those empties were filled with Texas Nationalists? Well, all of a sudden now the idea of Texas independence, I mean, it's already on the platform, right, for the Republican Party. All these sort of policy things, it's there, just waiting to break through. I mean, it would have been a legislative priority had they not played fast and loose with the ranking system at the last convention. But I mean, imagine, how much more in the Texas independence direction could public policy be steered if all of those empty slots were filled by Texas Nationals, right? So he's chimed in on something, 30 extra seats open. I think where Chris is, that's probably Harris County. That's not an insubstantial number. It's just the reality of it. So anyway, thank you for your super chat, Chris. Very much appreciated. Okay. Let's see what we got here. Okay, let's take this one. Okay, so let me. I'm gonna take this question via email, but I'm not gonna be able to really answer it because you got to get full guidance on how this works, right? So this is from Mike. Mike says, given that the TNM cannot endorse political candidates, what are the guidelines for having election materials for Texas First candidates available at public outreach events, gun shows, county fairs, etc.? And this gets into some really interesting situations, right? Because we cannot, as an organization, engage in partisan activity. Okay, so what does that mean? Or specific candidate advocacy, let's say that. Okay, and there's a bunch of guidelines and a whole lot of there's a guidance document that you guys will be getting to really explain this. We're a bit early in the cycle for it, but it sounds like maybe not. But let me just say this: you absolutely cannot distribute candidate materials at TNM events. In other words, TNM, if it's TNM booth, TNM event, TNM people cannot distribute for a candidate. Period. Point blank. There's no discussion about that. However, the organization can make it known who has or who has not signed the Texas First Pledge. We are well within our rights as an organization to properly characterize where candidates are in relation to this issue. And so you guys will be getting guidance on this out there in the field for volunteers. Now, we're not talking about individual advocacy. If you are an individual volunteer and you want to go out and do something individually for a candidate, we encourage that. Go volunteer for the candidate of your choice. As a matter of fact, we currently have a fundraiser going on the donation page, raising money to do statewide volunteer training so that our people could be more effective volunteers for these campaigns. So folks, go make a contribution to that campaign. But that being said, there is a clear distinction between personal advocacy and advocacy on behalf of the organization. And so if you are not clear, or anybody is not clear on those, understand that you will be getting guidance and training on that. And apparently we're going to have to do it sooner than we anticipated, but it will happen. So yeah, the T&M, it gets into a lot of weird waters, and can't really tuck into that on a live stream with a Q&A. It takes a little more than that, but you guys will be getting guidance, Mike. So thank you for asking that question, and we'll make sure you get that knocked out. All right, let's get back over here to the chat because I'm running out of time. Chris, he says, do you think the voter redistricting issue, a federal one, will eclipse property tax relief in Texas special session? I think that it will definitely be. I think the redistricting issue is going to suck all the oxygen out of the room. And I don't think that is by accident. The voices calling for the elimination of property tax are louder and louder, and I think a lot of people, especially since, remember, the Senate, Dan Patrick and Dustin Burrows were clicking their heels about the substantial level of property tax relief that was delivered to Texans, which we know was a bunch of crap, right? Thanks for capping the rates and doing nothing to address the appraisals, which is where they'll make it up, or closing loopholes like, what we heard about Kerr County jacking up, using the state of emergency as an opportunity to bust the cap before they needed a voter approval on raising the rates. So, rather than they didn't do anything really substantial. They do the same thing that they do every 2 years, which is come out and say, most conservative session ever, we lowered your property taxes, and people buy that crap until the tax bills come in and they realize that they've been had, or most people don't even realize it at all, okay? So that being said, I think there was a lot of surprise that Greg Abbott said something. And added it to the call for the special session. Then you throw this redistricting into the mix, which was essentially, I don't know. I wish I could have pulled the video and played it, but there was some testimony from a crazy Democrat guy testifying in front of the redistricting committee. And while I disagreed with much of what he said, there was a lot of it that I did agree with, which is what is happening here is the weaponization of gerrymandering. Where Texas is going to go in and do this redistricting, and now California is going to go offset that by gerrymandering districts, and New York is going to do it, and New Jersey is going to do it, and Maryland is going to do it in response. And so, this gerrymandering back and forth, and all of this effectively triggered by a DOJ letter, which I don't disagree with the premise. I don't think racial gerrymandering districts is a legitimate thing. The redistricting issue and us go back a long way. But the bottom line is, I don't disagree with the premise, but the fact that Trump came out and said, look, we're doing this because we need 5 extra seats somewhere. I think verbalizing the motive probably verbalizing the motive was not the most strategically wise thing, but I'll be honest, it's not like people couldn't read the tea leaves on that thing. So it's going to trigger this massive back and forth. We're talking about the potential here. The Democrats are already working up to go break quorum here in Texas. And yeah, they've implemented some rules about that here in Texas. But as we know, to the leadership, particularly in the Texas House, and honestly, Dan Patrick in the Senate, the rules don't mean much when it comes to achieving their own political agendas or the political agendas of their donors. So, is it going to get swallowed up? Probably. This is going to be, the redistricting thing is going to be exceedingly dramatic, and it's going to suck all the oxygen out of the room. And people out here that are still having to pay rent to the government to continue to own their own property are going to yet again get the short end of the stick. And it's just, I think that is the horrible thing. And I would hope, Chris, that the people of Texas will not fall for this red herring shell game nonsense yet again. I would hope. But the elimination of property taxes has got to be a major priority. property tax, we can talk about how much the feds screw us over all the time, but the reality here is the feds implement an income tax, which is an immoral tax. The state implements a property tax, which is an equally immoral tax, right? So you can't rail at the income tax like rail at the property tax, because ultimately the reason you rail at the income tax is the same reason you should be railing against the property tax, and vice versa. It's just the reality of it. So, all right. Anyway, thanks for that. Okay. Okay, there was something on the screen. I don't know what happened there, but that was kind of cool. Oh, there it is. Daniel, I just want to say I'm grateful for you, your hard work, and your personal support for the Texas cause. I have the same gratitude for your family. Thank you very much for that. I think that might have been a missed key to throw it up there, because Karen knows those sorts of things make me, they kind of choke me up a little bit. But thank you for that. I really do appreciate it. And let me just say that I'm grateful for all of y'all. You guys are the ones that are making this happen. One person cannot do this. One person cannot. It is impossible. I reject the philosophy that independence requires a political messiahs, or political change requires political messiahs, period. Not just independence, but any political change requires a political messiah. Ultimately, all political power is inherent in the people. It should always be that way. Not all political power is inherent in a person. And it's why I always chuckle when I get these emails and if you guys could just get Chuck Norris on board this thing, well, no. I mean, it would be lovely if he was, but I don't want people. Independence will never be long lasting if someone's support for independence is solely predicated upon the support of a celebrity. I mean, it's not. And I could go into the empirical evidence about how that stuff doesn't move the needle in independence referendums, but it's boring. But my point here is not a technical one. My point here is a philosophical one. And so when I see things like this, I really thank you for saying that, but just know that I'm grateful for you, and I'm grateful for all of you out there that are doing something toward this effort, whether it's donating, volunteering, becoming a member, spreading the word, whatever it is. We're thankful, because were it not for all of us, we would not have been able to advance Texas independence to the point where today, I believe it is still I don't even have to believe. The numbers are there. We bring it to a vote, we win. There's no doubt in my mind. So thank you for that. All right, let's get down to this one here. Oh, man, I'm almost out of time. All right. Okay, so look, I saw this one from the former Robin, now Red Hood, right? Jason Todd, which is a great screen name, by the way. If Texas gains its independence, we will be sandwiched in between two nations of which we were both formerly a part of. We are surrounded on all sides. How do we deal with that? We deal with it like we always have, which is with diplomacy, tact, matter-of-factness, and always being ready, right? I mean, yeah, we used to be part of them, but I mean, the United States used to be a part of Great Britain, and now, they are linking pinkies and singing Kumbaya. So I'm not particularly worried about that. I will tell you that I think Texas independence will greatly improve our relationship with both the United States and Mexico. Because at the end of the day, if we don't like what they're doing, either one of them, we have the ability to tell them to kick rocks, right? We're going to do what we want to do because we're a self-governing independent nation. Whereas, our relationship as it currently stands as part of the United States is totally within the context of the relationship between those two entities. We have the ability, when Texas becomes a self-governing independent nation, to set what that relationship is. And as long as I think Texans have always shown, we want peace and commerce. That's it. We want to be secure. We want to be able to set our own policy. We want to be able to trade, and we want to be left alone. Let's be friends, right? But you don't get to tell us what to do anymore. It's a lovely thing, and it is one of the best things. Okay, my friends. Wow, we flat blew through it tonight, and you guys can't hear it because probably all the sound equipment's cutting it out. But it was cutting up some thunder out there, so I think the storm may be upon us. So this is I think some good timing. But that being said, look, let me take an opportunity. I want to thank all of our YouTube channel members for sponsoring tonight. And of course, all of our super chatters. Thank you guys so very much. Really do appreciate your support. You are the ones who keep us going and keep us producing content and help us. You're helping us reach more voters, right? Just like the comment that we had today during Coffee Talk or tonight. You know, the whole idea of how do we educate ourselves? Well, we educate ourselves and we educate others. So that's part of the work that we have to do here in TNM. It's not just educate within the confines of our organization, but we have to go out and educate others as well and inform them. And that's part of what you help make possible. You know, you are the hero of this story, not me. So we're carrying out your vision. Okay, real quick. Some of you may have already noticed some weirdness happening with TNM Social, right? With the TNM Social app, our TNM.me mobile app, and obviously TNM Social on the website. That's because the long-promised changeover is happening, right? This has taken, it feels like forever. But TNM Social, brand spanking new, rebranded, much faster. You guys, the mobile app will be updating any day now, right? So whether it's Android or Apple, you're going to get the new app update push. The old site is still live, but as soon as the apps update, that will go away. So if you want the preview and want to start using it now, you have an opportunity. Head over to tnm.social. That's tnm.social and check it out. It's different, but similar. But if you want to be a part of that, the good news is if you're not signed up there, you can now go sign up there. You can register your support. You can register an account on TNM Social. And there's a lot of really cool things getting ready to happen over there. So I would suggest you go check it out and enjoy, and understand that the mobile app is still connected to the old site, but that'll change in a couple of days. All right. Additionally, look, if we get ready to do that and get that mobile app, head over to tnm.me/app, download the TNM mobile app, the TNM Social mobile app, and be able to take it on the go. You've got the ability now to, right now, I mean, you literally could go to TNM.social if you haven't registered. But when the app, you'll be able to sign up on the app. You can sign up using Facebook or Google or your X account or any number of things. We've worked this thing out 9 ways from Sunday. Lots of really cool things going on over there, but be sure you get the mobile app because that's the key thing, right? Our ability to communicate with each other is going to be paramount in the days to come. So be sure you do that. Additionally, you heard me mention the Texan Arise campaign. We have an Alamo Wreath campaign that we still need contributions to hit our annual goal to cover the wreaths for the Alamo. But head over to donate.tnm.me. Check out the contribution campaigns, find out where you can go help out and be a part of the solution today. And some really cool things are coming down the pike there too. So be ready for that. Okay, friends, that, as I said, is a wrap for tonight. I want to thank you guys so much for joining me for this. Man, I made it. I didn't even make it to the bottom of this cup of coffee. That means it was more talk than coffee. Let me take care of that problem. Much better. All right. Thank you guys again so much. So tonight I'm going to leave you with the words I leave you with every time we're together. They're not my words, they're the words of Sam Houston when he said that Texas will again lift its head and stand among the nations. I believe that time is now, and the question is, will you stand with her? Good night, everyone.